A single act of kindness can ignite a revolution in a world ruled by wealth and power. For Evelyn Hayes, a waitress with nothing to her name but her integrity defending a teenage dishwasher from a billionaire's scorn, was just the right thing to do. She never imagined that this one moment of defiance would unravel a web of secrets, lies, and family dynasties, culminating in a gift beyond her wildest dreams, a brand new Rolls-Royce. But who was the mysterious benefactor? The answer is a shocking twist you won't see coming. This is the story of how a waitress toppled an empire. The clinking of crystal glasses and the low hum of self-important conversations filled the opulent dining room of the Gilded Cage, a restaurant that catered to the city's elite. Evelyn Hayes moved through the maze of tables with a practiced grace, her smile a polite mask that concealed the weariness in her bones. At 23, she was a veteran of the service industry, a world where the customer was always right, especially when their net worth could buy the entire city block. Tonight, the air was particularly thick with the scent of expensive perfume and entitlement. Harrison Blackwood was dining at his usual corner table, a man whose fortune was as vast as his ego. He was a titan of industry, a name that made stock markets tremble and aspiring entrepreneurs weep. To the staff of the Gilded Cage, he was a walking storm cloud, a man who seemed to derive pleasure from the discomfort of others. Evelyn was refilling water glasses when she saw it happen. Leo Vance, the new dishwasher, had been called out to help clear a particularly large table. At 17, Leo was all gangly limbs and nervous energy, his eyes wide with the perpetual anxiety of a teenager trying to navigate an adult world. He was a good kid, quiet and hard-working, and Evelyn had taken a liking to him. As Leo reached for a stack of plates, his arm brushed against a half-empty wine glass. The glass, a delicate piece of Venetian crystal, teetered for a moment before crashing to the floor, shattering into 1,000 tiny daggers of glass and splashing a fine mist of expensive Merlot onto Harrison Blackwood's tailored suit trousers. The silence that followed was immediate and absolute. Every conversation stopped, every head turned towards the scene of the crime. Blackwood looked down at his trousers, then up at Leo, his face a thunderous mask of rage. "You clumsy oaf." Blackwood's voice was a low growl that carried across the silent room. "Do you have any idea how much this suit costs? It's more than you'll make in a year of washing dishes in this pathetic excuse for a restaurant." Leo stood frozen, his face ashen. I'm so sorry, sir. It was an accident." "An accident," Blackwood sneered, dabbing at the stain with a silk napkin. "Incompetence is not an accident. It's a character flaw. Tell me, boy, are you as stupid as you look?" Evelyn felt a hot surge of anger rise in her chest. She had seen Blackwood belittle staff before, but this was different. There was a particular cruelty in the way he was tearing down a young boy who was already terrified. She placed her water pitcher on a nearby table and walked towards Blackwood's table, her heels clicking purposefully on the marble floor. "Mr. Blackwood," she said, her voice calm but firm. "It was an accident. Leo is a new member of our staff, and he's still learning." Blackwood's icy gaze shifted to Evelyn. "And who are you?" "The boy's mother. I'm his colleague," Evelyn replied, meeting his stare without flinching. "And I would appreciate it if you didn't speak to him that way." A collective gasp rippled through the dining room. No one, absolutely no one, spoke to Harrison Blackwood like that. Blackwood raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. He seemed more amused than angry now, as if a kitten had tried to challenge a lion. His colleague, he repeated, a smirk playing on his lips. How noble of you, but your nobility won't pay for my suit. I want the boy fired. Now! Mr. Dubois, the restaurant's owner, scurried over his face, pale and beaded with sweat. Mr. Blackwood, please let's not be hasty. We can have the suit professionally cleaned, of course, and we will compensate you for any damages. I don't want compensation, Blackwood said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. I want him gone. This establishment is supposed to be a haven of excellence, not a training ground for clumsy children. If he's not fired by the time I finish my dessert, I will not only never dine here again, but I will make it my personal mission to ensure that no one of any importance ever sets foot in this place again. The threat hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Mr. Dubois looked at Leo, then at Evelyn, his eyes pleading. He was a good man, but he was also a businessman, and he knew that Blackwood was a man of his word. Evelyn's heart pounded in her chest. She knew what was coming. She knew that in this world, the powerful always won. But as she looked at Leo, who was staring at the floor, his shoulders slumped in defeat, she knew she couldn't back down. You can't fire him for an accident, she said, her voice ringing with a conviction she didn't know she possessed. It's not right. Blackwood's smirk widened. Right. My dear girl, right is a concept for philosophers and paupers. In the real world, there is only power, and I have it. He goes, or you both do. Mr. Dubois wrung his hands, his face a mask of anguish. Evelyn, please. But Evelyn stood her ground. Then I guess we both go. She turned to Leo and gave him a small, reassuring smile. Come on, Leo, let's get our things. As they walked towards the kitchen, the silence in the dining room was broken by a slow, mocking clap from Harrison Blackwood. Bravo! He called out, his voice dripping with sarcasm. The Waitress and the Dishwasher, a modern-day tragedy. Don't worry, I'm sure you'll find a soup kitchen that's hiring. Evelyn didn't look back. She kept her head held high, a silent promise to herself that she would not let this man, this symbol of everything she despised, break her spirit. She didn't know it yet, but this single act of defiance had set in motion a chain of events that would change her life and the lives of everyone involved forever. The first domino had fallen, and the rest were about to come crashing down in a spectacular fashion. The sterile fluorescent lights of the back alley behind the gilded cage felt a world away from the soft golden glow of the dining room. The air was thick with the smell of garbage and grease, a stark reminder of the unglamorous reality that underpinned the world of fine dining. Evelyn leaned against the cold brick wall, the adrenaline from her confrontation with Harrison Blackwood beginning to fade, leaving a hollow ache in its place. Leo sat on an overturned milk crate, his head in his hands. He was trembling not from the cool night air, but from the shock and humiliation of the evening's events. I'm so sorry, Evelyn. He mumbled, his voice muffled by his hands. I messed up. I cost you your job. Evelyn pushed herself off the wall and sat on the crate next to him. Hey, she said, her voice soft. Look at me. Leo slowly lifted his head. His eyes were red-rimmed and his face was pale. You didn't do anything wrong, Evelyn said, her voice firm. It was an accident, and I didn't lose my job because of you. I lost it because I chose to stand up for what was right. But he's Harrison Blackwood, Leo stammered as if the name itself was a curse. He can ruin us. He can only ruin us if we let him, Evelyn said, a flicker of defiance in her eyes. He's just a bully with a big bank account. There are more important things in life than money. Leo looked at her, a glimmer of admiration in his young eyes. You're not scared of him, are you? Evelyn hesitated for a moment. Scared. Of course she was scared. She had just lost her only source of income. Her rent was due next week, and her savings account was a joke. But she wouldn't let Leo see that. She had to be strong for both of them. Fear is a choice, she said, repeating a mantra her grandmother used to say. And I choose not to be afraid of men like him. She managed a small smile. Besides, I was getting tired of that place anyway. The customers were all so gilded. Leo let out a small, watery chuckle. Yeah, gilded and cudged. They sat in silence for a few moments, the sounds of the city, a distant roar. What are you going to do now? Leo asked, his voice barely a whisper. I'll figure something out, Evelyn said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. I always do. She looked at Leo, a sudden thought striking her. What about you? Do you have family in the city? Leo's face clouded over. My mom. She's not well. I was sending her most of my pay. Evelyn's heart ached for him. He was just a kid, carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Where do you live? She asked. A small apartment in the East End, he replied. Okay, Evelyn said, making a decision. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back to my place. I've got a couch you can crash on for a few nights, and tomorrow we'll start looking for new jobs. Together. Leo's eyes widened. Really? You'd do that for me? Of course, Evelyn said, ruffling his hair. We're the waitress and the dishwasher, remember? We've got to stick together. A genuine smile, the first one she had seen from him all night, spread across Leo's face. Thank you, Evelyn. Thank you. As they started the long walk to Evelyn's small apartment in a less fashionable part of town, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She glanced over her shoulder a few times, but the streets were empty. It was probably just her paranoia, she told herself. The stress of the evening was getting to her. But she was wrong. From the darkened window of a black sedan parked across the street from the gilded cage, two figures had watched the entire scene unfold. One was Harrison Blackwood's associate, a man named Carter, his face a mask of cold professionalism. The other was a woman, her features obscured by the shadows. She held a phone to her ear, her voice low and urgent. It's done, she said. The girl, Evelyn Hayes, she defended the boy. They were both fired. There was a pause as she listened to the person on the other end of the line. Yes, she continued, she's exactly as you described. Fiery. Principled. Another pause. Don't worry, the woman said, a faint smile playing on her lips. Mr. Blackwood has taken the bait. The game has begun. She ended the call and turned to Carter. Let's go. We have a delivery to arrange. Carter nodded, his expression unreadable. He started the car and pulled away from the curb, the sleek black sedan disappearing into the night. The city slept oblivious to the intricate web of secrets and lies that was being woven around a young waitress and a teenage dishwasher. The players had been set, the board was ready, and the first move had been made. But in this high-stakes game of power and deception, it was impossible to tell who was the pawn and who was the queen. One thing was certain, however, for Evelyn Hayes, life would never be the same again. The ripples of her small act of defiance were about to become a tidal wave, and she was standing right at the epicenter. The storm was coming, and it was heading straight for her. The next few days passed in a blur of job applications and instant noodles. Evelyn's small apartment, usually a sanctuary of calm, was now a command center for their job search. The living room floor was littered with newspapers, their classified sections circled in red ink. Her laptop was permanently open on the coffee table, its screen a constant stream of online job boards and rejection emails. Despite the grim reality of their situation, a strange sense of camaraderie had developed between Evelyn and Leo. They shared stories of their pasts, their hopes for the future. Evelyn learned that Leo was a talented artist, his sketchbook filled with intricate drawings of fantastical creatures and faraway lands. He dreamed of going to art school, a dream that seemed impossibly distant now. Evelyn, in turn, opened up about her own life, a story she rarely shared with anyone. She told him about her childhood in a small town, about her parents who had died in a car accident when she was 18, leaving her with a mountain of debt and a profound sense of loneliness. She had moved to the city to escape the ghosts of her past, to build a new life for herself. "I guess we're both runaways," Leo had said, a sad smile on his face. "I prefer the term adventurers," Evelyn had replied, trying to inject a bit of levity into their conversation. But as the days turned into a week, their optimism began to wane. Every job application seemed to hit a dead end. Restaurants that had once been eager to hire an experienced waitress like Evelyn suddenly had no openings. Even the most menial of jobs that Leo was overqualified for were mysteriously filled just before he was scheduled for an interview. It didn't take them long to figure out what was happening. Harrison Blackwood was making good on his threat. His name, it seemed, was a poison that had tainted their reputations. They were blacklisted unemployable. The weight of their predicament settled heavily on Evelyn's shoulders. Her savings were dwindling at an alarming rate. The rent was due in a few days, and for the first time in her life, she had no idea how she was going to pay it. One rainy afternoon, as she was staring at a pile of final notice bills on her kitchen table, her phone rang. It was an unknown number. She almost ignored it, assuming it was another debt collector, but something made her answer. "Hello." "Is this Evelyn Hayes?" a man's voice asked. It was a voice that sounded vaguely familiar, but she couldn't place it. "Yes, this is she," Evelyn replied, her guard up. "My name is Carter," the man said. "I'm an associate of Mr. Harrison Blackwood." Evelyn's blood ran cold. "What do you want, Mr. Blackwood has a proposition for you," Carter said, his voice smooth and professional. "I'm not interested in anything Mr. Blackwood has to say." Evelyn snapped, about to hang up. "I would advise you to hear me out, Ms. Hayes," Carter said, his tone shifting slightly, a hint of steel beneath the velvet. "It concerns the well-being of your young friend, Leo Vance." Evelyn's hand froze. "What about Leo?" "Mr. Blackwood has taken an interest in the boy," Carter said. "A paternal interest, you might say. He is prepared to offer Leo a full scholarship to the most prestigious art school in the country. He will cover all of his tuition, his living expenses, everything. The boy's dreams of becoming an artist will be realized." Evelyn was stunned into silence. A full scholarship. It was everything Leo had ever wanted. "What's the catch?" she asked, her voice laced with suspicion. "No catch," Carter replied. "Just a small condition. You, Ms. Hayes, must sign a non-disclosure agreement. You will agree to never speak of the events that occurred at the Gilded Cage. You will also agree to leave the city and never return." Evelyn's mind reeled. Blackwood was trying to buy her silence, to erase her from the city, from Leo's life. It was a cruel, manipulative move, but a full scholarship for Leo. It was a golden ticket, a chance for him to escape the life of poverty and struggle that seemed to be his destiny. "Why?" Evelyn asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Why is he doing this? Mr. Blackwood is a generous man," Carter said, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "He sees potential in the boy. He wants to help him." "Generous?" Evelyn scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "He's a monster." "He is a powerful man, Ms. Hayes," Carter corrected her. "And he is offering you a choice. You can be the reason Leo Vance spends the rest of his life washing dishes, or you can be the reason he becomes a world-renowned artist. The choice is yours." The line went dead. Evelyn stood in her small kitchen, the phone still pressed to her ear, the weight of an impossible decision crashing down on her. Blackwood had her trapped. He had found her weakness, her Achilles heel, her affection for Leo. She could refuse, of course. She could fight. But what would that accomplish? They would both end up on the streets, their dreams turning to dust. But to accept meant leaving the city, leaving Leo, letting Blackwood win. It felt like a betrayal of everything she believed in. That evening, when Leo returned from another fruitless day of job hunting, his face etched with discouragement, Evelyn knew what she had to do. She couldn't let his future be the price of her pride. She sat him down, and with a heavy heart, she told him about Blackwood's offer. She left out the part about her having to leave the city. She would spare him that pain. Leo's reaction was not what she expected. He wasn't excited. He was angry. "I don't want his charity," he said, his voice shaking with a quiet fury. "I don't want anything from that man." "Leo, this is your dream," Evelyn pleaded. "You can't let your pride get in the way of that." "It's not about pride," Leo shot back, his eyes flashing. "It's about principle. I won't be his pawn. I won't let him use me to get to you." "Get to me?" Evelyn asked, confused. "What are you talking about?" "He's not doing this for me," Leo said, his voice dropping. "He's doing this to control you, to silence you." Evelyn was taken aback by his astuteness. He saw the manipulation more clearly than she had. "But Leo," she said, her voice soft, "what other choice do we have? We have each other." Leo said, his gaze meeting hers. "We'll figure something out. We always do." In that moment, Evelyn felt a surge of pride and affection for the young man sitting across from her. He had more integrity in his little finger than Harrison Blackwood had in his entire empire. "You're right," she said, a smile breaking through her worry. "We're the waitress and the dishwasher. We're a team." She picked up her phone and dialed Carter's number. He answered on the first ring. "I've considered your offer," Evelyn said, her voice clear and steady. "And my answer is no. You can tell Mr. Blackwood to take his scholarship and his non-disclosure agreement and shove them." She hung up before Carter could reply. A sense of liberation washed over her. She may have been broke and unemployed, but she was free. She had her integrity, and she had her friend. And for now, that was enough. But as she and Leo celebrated their small victory with a shared bag of chips, they were unaware that they were being watched yet again. Across the street in the same black sedan, the mysterious woman was on the phone once more. "She refused the offer," the woman said, a note of admiration in her voice. "She's stronger than I thought." There was a pause. "Yes," the woman continued. "It's time. Send the car." She ended the call and looked at the small, unassuming apartment building where Evelyn and Leo were laughing, oblivious to the storm that was about to break. "The world is about to change for you, Evelyn Hayes," the woman whispered to herself, "and you have no idea who your friends really are." The next morning, the city awoke to a scene of utter chaos outside Evelyn's apartment building. A gleaming, brand-new Rolls-Royce, the color of a midnight sky, was parked at the curb, a massive red bow adorning its hood. It was a chariot of the gods, a symbol of unimaginable wealth, and it was so out of place in this run-down neighborhood that it looked like it had been dropped from another planet. A crowd of onlookers had gathered their phones out, snapping pictures and whispering in hushed, excited tones. Who did it belong to? A movie star. A reclusive millionaire, Evelyn and Leo, were drawn out of the apartment by the commotion. When Evelyn saw the car, her first thought was that it was some kind of cruel joke. A publicity stunt by Harrison Blackwood, perhaps. A way to mock her poverty, to dangle in front of her everything she could never have. But then she saw the man standing next to the car. He was impeccably dressed in a chauffeur's uniform, his white gloves pristine, his posture ramrod straight. He was holding a small, sealed envelope. As Evelyn approached, the chauffeur's eyes met hers. He gave a small, respectful bow. "Ms. Evelyn Hayes," he asked, his voice a polite, British-accented baritone. Evelyn nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. The chauffeur handed her the envelope. "This is for you." With trembling hands, Evelyn broke the wax seal and opened the envelope. Inside was a single, heavy card. The embossed lettering was simple, elegant, and utterly mind-boggling. It read, "A gift. The keys and title are in the glove compartment. The car is registered in your name. Congratulations, Ms. Hayes. You've earned it." There was no signature, no indication of who the sender was. Evelyn stared at the card, then at the car, then back at the card. It didn't make any sense. This had to be a mistake. "There must be some misunderstanding," she said to the chauffeur. I can't accept this." "There is no misunderstanding, Ms. Hayes," the chauffeur replied, his expression unwavering. "The car is yours. My instructions were to deliver it to you and then to leave. My work here is done." With another polite bow, the chauffeur turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd of onlookers. Evelyn was left standing in front of a $500,000 car, a key and a title deed away from becoming its owner. The crowd was buzzing with questions. Leo was staring at her, his mouth agape, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Evelyn," he whispered, "what is going on?" "I have no idea," she replied, her voice a mixture of awe and confusion. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. Who would give her a Rolls-Royce? The only person she could think of who had that kind of money was Harrison Blackwood. But why would he give her such an extravagant gift? Was this another one of his manipulative games, a way to indebt her to him, to own her? The thought sent a shiver down her spine. She wanted nothing from that man. She would rather be homeless than be in his debt. "I'm not keeping it," she said, her voice firm. "I'm going to find out who sent it, and I'm going to give it back." She opened the car door. The interior was a symphony of cream-colored leather and polished walnut. The new car smell was intoxicating. She opened the glove compartment. Inside, as the card had promised, were the keys and the title deed. The car was registered in her name, Evelyn Hayes, but there was something else in the glove compartment. A small leather-bound notebook. It looked old, its pages yellowed with age. She opened it. The first page had a single name written in elegant cursive handwriting, Eleanor Vance. The name meant nothing to her. But when she showed it to Leo, his face went deathly pale. "Leo?" Evelyn asked, her concern growing. "What is it? Who is Eleanor Vance?" Leo looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and sadness. "She was my grandmother." The revelation hung in the air, thick with unspoken questions. Leo's grandmother. But she was dead. He had told Evelyn that she had passed away a few years ago. "But how?" Evelyn stammered. "What does your grandmother have to do with this? I don't know," Leo said, his voice trembling. "I don't understand." He took the notebook from her hands and began to flip through the pages. It was a diary filled with his grandmother's thoughts and feelings, her hopes and her fears. But as he read, his expression shifted from confusion to dawning comprehension. "Evelyn," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "we need to go somewhere private. There's something I have to tell you. Something I should have told you from the beginning." They drove the Rolls-Royce away from the gawking crowd, the engine a silent, powerful hum. Evelyn felt a strange sense of detachment, as if she were in a dream. The city, which had once felt so hostile and unforgiving, now seemed to glide by a blur of concrete and glass. They ended up at a small, secluded park overlooking the river. The morning sun cast a golden glow on the water, a stark contrast to the turmoil in Evelyn's heart. They sat on a bench, the leather-bound diary on the seat between them. "My real name is not Leo Vance," the boy began, his voice heavy with the weight of his confession. "It's Leo Vance Blackwood." Evelyn's breath hitched in her throat. "Blackwood? As in Harrison Blackwood?" "Harrison Blackwood is my grandfather," Leo continued, his eyes fixed on the river. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Evelyn stared at the boy next to her, the boy she had thought of as a friend, a fellow victim. He was the grandson of the man who had tormented them, the man who had tried to ruin their lives. A wave of betrayal washed over her. "You lied to me," she said, her voice cold. "I didn't have a choice," Leo said, his voice pleading. "Please let me explain." He told her a story that was so full of secrets and lies, of family drama and corporate espionage, that it sounded like the plot of a Hollywood movie. His grandmother, Eleanor Vance, had been a brilliant businesswoman, the founder of a small but successful tech company. She had been a rival of Harrison Blackwood, a man she despised for his ruthless and unethical business practices. They had been locked in a bitter feud for years, a battle of wits and wills that had played out in boardrooms and courtrooms. But their rivalry had taken a personal turn when Eleanor's daughter, Leo's mother, had fallen in love with Harrison Blackwood's son. It was a forbidden love, a modern-day Romeo and Juliet story. Their families had been torn apart. When Leo's parents had died in a plane crash, a crash that Leo now suspected was no accident, he had been left in the care of his grandmother, Eleanor. Eleanor had raised him in secret, hiding him from his grandfather, a man she believed was a monster. She had filled his head with stories of Blackwood's cruelty, of his insatiable greed, of the lives he had destroyed in his relentless pursuit of power. A few months ago, Eleanor had died, leaving Leo alone in the world. But she had left him with a mission to expose his grandfather, to bring him down, to get justice for his parents, and for all the people Blackwood had wronged. "She had a plan," Leo explained, his voice filled with a newfound determination. "A plan to get close to him, to find evidence of his crimes. That's why I was working at the Gilded Cage. I knew he ate there all the time. I was hoping to, I don't know, overhear something, find something." "And the spilled wine?" Evelyn asked, the pieces of the puzzle starting to fall into place. "Was that an accident?" Leo hesitated for a moment, then shook his head. No, I did it on purpose. I wanted to create a scene to see how he would react. I never imagined you would get involved. Evelyn was silent, her mind reeling from the revelations. The teenage dishwasher she had defended was a secret agent, a mole in his own grandfather's inner circle. And she, the unwitting waitress, had become a key player in his dangerous game. But the Rolls-Royce, she said, her voice a whisper. Your grandmother is dead. Who sent it? Leo opened the diary to the last page. There was a final entry written in a weak, shaky hand. It read, My dearest Leo, if you are reading this, then I am gone. But my fight is not over. I have put in motion a plan to help you, a plan to give you the resources you need to defeat your grandfather. I have an old friend, a trusted ally, who will be watching over you. She will know when the time is right to reveal herself. Look for the woman in the shadows. She will be your guide. Below the entry was a phone number. I think my grandmother had a contingency plan. Leo said, his eyes meeting Evelyn's. I think she knew she might not live to see her plan through. And I think she chose you, Evelyn. She chose you to help me. Evelyn stared at the phone number, her heart pounding in her chest. A mysterious benefactor. A woman in the shadows. A secret war against a billionaire tyrant. Her life had just taken a turn she could never have imagined. She was no longer just a waitress. She was a revolutionary. And she had a Rolls-Royce, a teenage spy, and a dead woman's diary as her weapons. The game had just gotten a whole lot more interesting. And Evelyn Hayes was ready to play. The weight of Leo's revelations settled around Evelyn like a thick fog. Her world, which just a few days ago had been defined by the simple, grueling reality of paying rent and serving overpriced entrees, had fractured into 1,000,000 pieces. She was no longer just a waitress fighting for her dignity. She was a pawn, or perhaps a knight in a multi-generational chess match she never knew she was playing. She looked at Leo, really looked at him for the first time. The gangly, nervous teenager was gone. In his place sat a young man with old eyes, burdened by a legacy of secrets and a mission of vengeance. The weight on his shoulders was far heavier than a tray of dirty dishes. So this whole time, Evelyn began, her voice still laced with a touch of disbelief. You've been playing a part. The clumsy dishwasher was an act. Leo nodded, a flicker of shame in his eyes. I'm sorry I lied to you, Evelyn. When you stood up for me, I felt terrible. You were risking your job for a lie. You weren't a complete lie, Evelyn corrected him softly. The fear in your eyes when Blackwood was yelling at you. That was real, wasn't it? He terrifies me. Leo admitted, his voice barely a whisper. My grandmother told me stories, things he's done to people, to his own family. He's not just a bully, Evelyn. He's dangerous. Evelyn's anger towards Leo for his deception melted away, replaced by a chilling realization. She hadn't just stood up to a rude customer. She had publicly defied a man who played for keeps, a man who, according to his own grandson, was capable of anything. Her mind flashed back to the black sedan she had seen outside the restaurant, the feeling of being watched. It hadn't been paranoia. Someone had been observing them. The woman in the shadows. Leo's grandmother's mysterious ally. This woman, Evelyn said, tapping the diary. Your grandmother's friend. Who is she? How do we find her? The diary just says to look for her. Leo replied, frustration clear in his voice. And it has this phone number. Evelyn pulled out her own phone. its screen cracked, and its battery life a constant source of anxiety. It felt absurdly inadequate for the task at hand. She looked from her cheap phone to the gleaming Rolls-Royce parked just a few feet away. The contrast was a perfect metaphor for her life at that moment. "Well," she said, taking a deep breath and steeling her nerves. "There's only one way to find out." She dialed the number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Just as she was about to hang up, a woman answered. Her voice was calm, cultured, and radiated an unnerving sense of control. "I was wondering when you'd call Ms. Hayes." Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. "Who is this?" "A friend," the woman replied. "A friend of Eleanor Vance, and I believe a friend of yours." "You sent the car?" Evelyn stated not a question, but a confirmation. "I did," the woman confirmed. Eleanor was very specific in her instructions. She believed that a grand gesture was needed to get your attention and to send a message to Harrison Blackwood. What message? Evelyn asked, her grip tightening on the phone. "That the game has changed," the woman said, a hint of steel in her voice. "That he is no longer the only player on the board with resources." 1,000 questions swirled in Evelyn's mind. Who was this woman? Why was she involved? What was her connection to the Vance family? But she knew that now was not the time for a full interrogation. She needed answers, but more than that, she needed a plan. "What do you want from me?" Evelyn asked, her voice steady. "I want to help you," the woman replied. "Eleanor entrusted me with her life's work, a collection of evidence documents and testimonies that, if brought to light, would not only destroy Harrison Blackwood's reputation, but would also put him behind bars for a very long time." Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. This was bigger than she had ever imagined. It wasn't just about getting justice for Leo's parents or for the staff of the Gilded Cage. It was about taking down a criminal empire. "Why me?" Evelyn asked the question that had been haunting her since she first saw the Rolls-Royce. Why did Eleanor choose me? Because she saw in you what she saw in herself. The woman said, her voice softening slightly. "A fighter. Someone with a strong moral compass. Someone who wasn't afraid to stand up to bullies, no matter how powerful they are. She watched you for weeks, Evelyn. She saw the way you treated your colleagues, the way you carried yourself with dignity and grace in a world that often lacks both. She knew you were the one." Evelyn was speechless. A woman she had never met, a woman who was now dead, had seen something in her that she had never seen in herself. She had been chosen. "Where is the evidence?" Evelyn asked, her voice filled with a new sense of purpose. "It's safe," the woman replied. "But it's not complete. There's one final piece of the puzzle. We need a piece that only someone on the inside can get, and that's where you and Leo come in." The line went silent for a moment, as if the woman was letting the weight of her words sink in. "This is dangerous. Evelyn." The woman continued, her voice a low warning. "Harrison Blackwood is a cornered animal. He will be more ruthless, more unpredictable than ever. He will come after you. He will try to destroy you." Evelyn looked at Leo, who was watching her with a mixture of hope and fear. She thought about her life up to this point, a life of quiet desperation, of just trying to get by. She thought about the countless times she had bitten her tongue, swallowed her pride just to keep a job to pay her bills. And then she thought about the feeling she had when she stood up to Blackwood, the surge of adrenaline, the sense of liberation. For the first time in a long time, she had felt alive. "I'm not afraid of him," Evelyn said, and this time she meant it. The fear was still there, a cold knot in the pit of her stomach, but it was overshadowed by something else, something stronger, a sense of purpose, a thirst for justice. "Good," the woman on the phone said, "because the war has just begun." She gave Evelyn a set of instructions, a time and a place for a meeting, and then she hung up. Evelyn sat in silence for a long time, the phone still in her hand. The city spread out before her like a battlefield. She had been given a new identity, a new mission. She was no longer Evelyn Hayes, the waitress. She was Evelyn Hayes, the secret weapon. She turned to Leo, a determined glint in her eye. It's time to go on the offensive. Their first target was the one place that held the key to Blackwood's downfall, his office. A fortress of glass and steel in the heart of the city, a place that was said to be impenetrable. But Evelyn had a plan that was as audacious as it was dangerous. And it involved using Blackwood's own weapon against him, his ego. She looked at the Rolls-Royce, no longer a symbol of an impossible dream, but a tool, a key. "I think it's time we paid Mr. Blackwood a visit," she said, a sly smile playing on her lips. "After all, he deserves a thank you note. Don't you think?" Leo looked at her, a slow smile spreading across his own face. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with something else, excitement. The game was afoot, and for the first time in his life, he wasn't playing defense. He was on the attack, and he had the best partner he could have ever asked for. The waitress and the dishwasher were about to take on the billionaire, and they were going to do it in style. The next morning, Evelyn and Leo put their audacious plan into motion. Evelyn, dressed in a stylish second-hand pantsuit that she had bought with the last of her cash, looked every bit the part of a confident, successful woman. Leo, in a simple but well-fitting suit, looked less like a teenage dishwasher and more like a young heir to a fortune. They drove the Rolls-Royce to Blackwood Tower, the gleaming monument to Harrison Blackwood's ego that dominated the city's skyline. The car, a symbol of their newfound, albeit mysterious power, purred as it pulled up to the curb, a shark gliding through a school of minnows. The doorman, accustomed to the city's elite, rushed to open Evelyn's door, his eyes wide with a mixture of awe and deference. The car had granted them access, a key to a world that had previously been locked and barred. They walked into the lobby, a cavernous space of marble and glass, their footsteps echoing in the cathedral-like silence. Evelyn walked with a confidence she didn't feel her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She was an imposter in this world of power and privilege, a wolf in sheep's clothing. But she knew that to succeed, she had to become the part. She approached the reception desk, a massive slab of black marble presided over by a woman with a perfectly coiffed bun and a glacial stare. "Evelyn Hayes, to see Mr. Blackwood." Evelyn announced, her voice cool and steady. The receptionist's eyes flickered with a brief, almost imperceptible flash of recognition. The story of the waitress who had defied Harrison Blackwood had become a whisper in the city's service industry, a cautionary tale, a legend. "Do you have an appointment?" the receptionist asked, her voice dripping with disdain. "No," Evelyn replied, a confident smile playing on her lips. "But I believe he's expecting me." She placed a small, elegant gift box on the counter. Inside was a single, perfect white rose and a simple handwritten note. It read, "Thank you for the gift. It's a bit ostentatious for my taste, but I appreciate the sentiment. I thought we should discuss the terms of my silence in person. You know where to find me." She had signed it simply, "The Waitress." It was a bluff, a high-stakes gamble. She was betting on Blackwood's arrogance, on his need to control the narrative, to have the last word. She was counting on him being unable to resist the opportunity to gloat, to dangle his power over her one more time. The receptionist, her curiosity piqued, took the box and disappeared into a back office. Evelyn and Leo waited, the tension in the air so thick it was almost suffocating. Every second that passed felt like an hour. Finally, the receptionist returned her expression, a mixture of shock and confusion. "Miss Blackwood will see you now," she said, her voice barely a whisper. They had done it. They had breached the fortress. They were escorted to a private elevator that whisked them up to the penthouse floor, the city shrinking below them. The elevator opened directly into Blackwood's office, a vast, sun-drenched space with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the world he believed he owned. Harrison Blackwood was sitting behind a massive desk, a modern-day throne of chrome and leather. He was a spider in the center of his web, his eyes cold and calculating, fixed on them as they entered. Carter, his ever-present associate, stood silently in the corner, a loyal attack dog, waiting for his master's command. "Ms. Hayes Blackwood," said his voice, a low purr. "To what do I owe this unexpected pleasure?" "I came to thank you for the car," Evelyn said, her voice betraying none of the fear that was churning in her stomach. "Though I have to admit, I'm a bit surprised. I didn't take you for the type to give such extravagant gifts to a complete stranger." Blackwood's lips curved into a smug smile. "Let's not play games, Ms. Hayes. We both know I didn't send you that car. Though I am intrigued. You seem to have acquired a very wealthy and very generous admirer." His eyes flickered to Leo, a flicker of something unreadable in their depths. It was the first time he had acknowledged his grandson's presence. "My friends are my own business," Evelyn said, her voice sharp. "I'm here to discuss your offer, the one your lapdog delivered to my apartment." She was playing with fire, she knew. She was provoking a man who could crush her without a second thought. But she had to keep him off balance, to keep him focused on her, while Leo put the second part of their plan into motion. While Evelyn engaged Blackwood in a battle of wills, Leo, under the guise of admiring the view, began to slowly make his way around the office. He was looking for something specific, something his grandmother had told him about in her diary, a small, hidden safe behind a painting of a stormy sea. It was where Blackwood kept his most valuable secrets, his leverage, as he called it. "You're a feisty one, aren't you?" Blackwood said, a glint of amusement in his eyes. "I can see why my associate was so taken with you. But you're playing in a league you don't understand, my dear. You're a guppy swimming with sharks, and you're a dinosaur." Evelyn shot back, rattling your old bones, thinking you still rule the world. "But a new age is dawning, Mr. Blackwood, and you're about to become extinct." Blackwood's amusement vanished, replaced by a flash of cold fury. "You have a sharp tongue, Ms. Hayes. I'd be careful where you point it. It might get you into trouble." "Is that a threat?" Evelyn asked, her chin held high. "It's a promise," Blackwood hissed. Just then, Leo, who had reached the painting, stumbled accidentally, knocking a small porcelain vase off a nearby pedestal. It shattered on the floor, the sound echoing through the tense silence. Clumsy oaf Blackwood muttered, his attention momentarily diverted. It was the opening they needed. While Carter moved to clean up the mess, and Blackwood was distracted by his grandson's apparent incompetence, Evelyn's eyes darted around the office, searching for anything that could be useful. Her gaze fell on a small silver picture frame on Blackwood's desk. It was a picture of a young woman with a warm, loving smile. She had Leo's eyes. It was his mother. And next to the picture frame, almost hidden beneath a stack of papers, was a small leather-bound book. A ledger. At the same time, Leo, under the pretense of helping to clean up the broken vase, managed to discreetly scan the back of the painting with a small, specialized device hidden in his sleeve. It was a high-tech scanner, a gift from his grandmother's mysterious friend. It could detect the presence of hidden compartments and safes. The device vibrated silently, confirming the safe's location. He had found it. But he still needed the combination. His eyes met Evelyn's across the room. She gave a subtle, almost imperceptible nod towards the picture frame on the desk. Leo's mind raced. His mother. The picture frame. Could it be that simple? His grandmother had told him that Blackwood, for all his monstrousness, had a single weakness: his late son, Leo's father. He had loved him with a fierce, possessive love. Leo thought about his parents' wedding anniversary. It was a date that had been seared into his memory, a date that represented both love and loss. He straightened up his face, a mask of youthful contrition. "I'm so sorry, grandfather. I'm so nervous." "Get out of my sight," Blackwood snarled, his patience worn thin. "Both of you, I'm done with this conversation." As Evelyn and Leo turned to leave, Evelyn accidentally brushed against the desk, her handbag knocking the ledger onto the floor. In the split second it took for her to bend down and retrieve it, she managed to snap a few quick photos of the open pages with a tiny camera concealed in her brooch. The pages were filled with a complex series of numbers and codes, a language she didn't understand, but knew was important. They were escorted out of the office, the heavy doors closing behind them with a final ominous thud. They had survived their first foray into the lion's den. They hadn't gotten the contents of the safe, but they had its location, a possible combination, and a copy of a mysterious ledger. As they rode the elevator down, the adrenaline began to fade, replaced by a sense of exhilaration. They had done it. They had faced the monster in his lair and had come away with their first victory. But as they stepped out into the bright sunlight of the city, a black sedan pulled up to the curb. The window rolled down, and the woman from the phone, the mysterious benefactor, was sitting in the back seat. "Get in," she said, her voice calm but urgent. "We need to talk." The game had just taken another unexpected turn, and Evelyn and Leo were about to come face to face with the woman who held all the secrets, the woman who had been pulling the strings from the very beginning. The shadowy ally was about to step into the light. You've just heard the story of Evelyn Hayes, a woman who proved that courage and integrity are more powerful than any fortune. But her fight is far from over. The ledger she photographed holds a dark secret, and the woman in the Rolls-Royce is about to reveal a shocking connection to Harrison Blackwood that will change everything. What happens next? The final showdown is coming, and you won't want to miss it. If you were on the edge of your seat, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who loves a story of the underdog fighting back. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the dramatic conclusion to Evelyn's battle against the billionaire. What do you think is in the ledger? Let us know in the comments below. Your support helps us create more stories like this.